Music of the Soul, Prelude, Chapter 6. Krista sat on her mattress in the late afternoon, now adorned in the scratchy brown wool robes that she'd seen Ileana in, bored, frustrated, and afraid. Afraid of what she had done, snatches of memory remained, but that was about it. Afraid because she was in a place she did not know. Afraid because she was not allowed to leave the room, let alone go back home. Afraid because she thought she was in a very big trouble, more trouble than she'd ever been in before. She was no troublemaker to seek out trouble or stir it up, but sometimes it happened anyway, and this was far worse than anything she'd ever done before. Worse, she'd heard someone screaming earlier in the day from somewhere outside. Someone said something before that which she could not hear, but then came some screams, shrieks of pain that came almost rhythmically. Would they do that to her? Make her scream? Hit her? Kill her? That last thought seemed a trifle more comforting than the others for some reason. She wished she had someone to talk to ease her fear. But Ileana was off somewhere she did not know, and no one had come to talk to her. With the exception of a man and a woman in a pair of jeans and plain green t-shirt, both with red hair and green eyes that looked like they were twins, to talk to her about her family and her home life, that is. They explained they needed the information to form a believable story to implant in her grandfather's and her brother's memories, in place of the memories they were going to erase, so that no one would look for her or think it odd that she was gone. They seemed angry at her and disgusted when they spoke, like she was a bug that they deigned not to step on, and instead provided the very great courtesy of explaining why they were asking their questions out of their own magnanimity. Part of her hated them for that, but it was a small part. The rest of her knew it was deserved. Whatever it was she had done, she could have killed people. She would rather die herself than to harm someone else like that. Left alone to her thoughts and fears, Krista began to cry quietly to herself, wrapping her arms around her knees, trying to make herself as small as possible. She was scum. She was a danger to everyone. Her grandfather and brother would have their memories erased and altered because of her. She deserved to die for that alone. Part of her wanted to die, though that was not unusual for her. She had wanted to cease existing for a long time now, though she did her best to hide it from everyone. No need to make them worry, after all. Just as the blanket under her seemed like a good tool to twist into a rope, a knock came at the door. The two who had visited her earlier had not bothered waiting for her to allow them in. They had simply burst in and began talking. This visitor was different, though. No one burst through the door. The brass doorknob didn't even jiggle. "Who is it?" she said, quietly at first, but then a bit louder so she could be heard. "It's Neil," came the rough, deep voice behind the door. "May I come in?" "Yes," she said, surprised that he would ask rather than just barging in, and surprised that he had come to visit with her. As the door opened, she was hit with another surprise. Rather than the plain white t-shirt and overlarge jeans he had been wearing yesterday when he found her, he was wearing soft white robes, though his feet were still bare. As he closed the door behind himself, she scooted back on her mattress, closer to the wall, and shrunk in on herself. She didn't know who he was really, and she was in here alone. He could be dangerous to her. "Hey, don't be afraid," he said, his voice oddly gentle now as he bent down to offer her a hand up. For some reason, doing so made him wince as though he were in pain. "I won't hurt you. I'm just here to talk." Krista did not take his hand, though part of her wanted to. After a moment, he took the hint and sat down on Ileana's mattress on the other side of the small room from hers, this time with a small grunt she was sure she wasn't supposed to hear. He shifted a little as he sat, then gave up the effort to become more comfortable. "Talk about what?" Crystal asked. "Whatever you want," Neil told her, still shifting. "Man, I forgot how uncomfortable these mattresses can be. Anyway, I'm sure you have a million questions, and I'm here to answer them, so ask away." "Where do I start?" Krista asked to herself. She really did have a million questions, but no idea which one to ask first. Maybe she should start with the most pressing question in her mind at the moment. Questions. Not one question, but many. What did I do yesterday? You saw it, didn't you? I did, he said, his voice grim as he grimaced. What you did was nearly kill yourself. You heard the song, right? A song, yes. But it's in a language I don't understand, she responded. That's how it is for everyone, and don't you dare sing that song. It is a very special song, a very powerful one, straight from your own soul. Ileana explained some of that. Something about some people having special souls, and those souls have a song that can do something special, but it rips the soul apart, Krista said, and if that happens, they can't be reborn. So you guys believe in reincarnation? You don't? Neil asked, sounding amused. Where do you think the soul goes after you die? I don't know, Crystal said slowly. I was raised in a Christian home, taught that we go to heaven when we die, if we have accepted Jesus Christ as our Savior. But I've given up my faith in my religious beliefs, so I don't really know what happens after we die. Honestly, I don't really care, so long as there's no more pain or suffering. Fair enough, Neil told her. Those gays now seemed both suspicious and worried. Anyway, each soul song does something different, and we find out on our own, through training, what that song will likely do. We can't know for sure until we sing it, but we can hypothesize. Your song, whatever it is the most powerful I've seen. More powerful than anyone has seen, in at least 2 generations, and that's saying something. Did anyone get hurt? Are their memories going to be altered? No one got hurt, but we can't track them down before they go to the media, so it'll be all over the news soon if it isn't already, Neil sighed. So people know what I am now. Doesn't that make me a danger to you guys too, just being here? She asked, her voice wavering a bit in fear. Yes, but we won't abandon you. It's too much of a risk to do so. More of a risk than keeping you here and training you. At least here no one knows where you are or who you are. We have very little connection to the outside world. All our food is grown here or bought at the local farmers market by members in disguise. All our electricity and running water comes from a local river with a generator and solar panels on the roofs of all the buildings. We have a wind turbine as well for cloudy days. We have everything we need here while being off the grid. Part of your chores here, and there are always chores for students who disobey the rules, will be tending the gardens, cleaning, cooking, repairs as needed, as well as hand-to-hand combat training. We believe in hard work for students and young people who disobey or get too distracted, so your days are going to be busy. Why will I be learning hand-to-hand combat? Are we going to be fighting people? She asked anxiously. She didn't want to fight anyone. No, we have no intention of fighting anyone. This is all for self-defense as well as physical and spiritual well-being. Speaking of the spiritual, there's also meditations we do daily. You'll find them useful, I think, so don't miss any, he told her. What will you guys do about all those people who saw me? Krista inquired. Unfortunately, we can't do much more than lay low until things blow over for now. Typically, we have a handful of members who go out into the society, mostly just to get the few needful things we can't make here, and to make sure no one knows who or what we are. They will be recalled to stay here until we deem it safe, he explained. Won't people notice them being gone? How will you know when it's safe? We always send out people that are different, so none of the local communities can remember them or identify them. If they suddenly don't show up one day, no one will remember that they should be there, and thus no one will come looking or even make any connection to us. As for knowing when it is safe, believe it or not, we actually have our own internet server and computers here. Something in her expression must have shown her very great surprise, because Neil smiled boyishly, and for some reason, that made her face feel warm. Let me guess. You thought we rode horse and buggy here with the most advanced technology being a plow and butter churn? Well, we are cut off from society, but we're not completely backwards or primitive. But wouldn't your IP address give away where you guys are? Krista asked. Well, yes, normally, but we have a few computer geeks here that manage to get around that. I have no clue how, so don't ask, Neil explained. Then why these ridiculous robes and why wool? Cotton or linen would be better, she grumped. You haven't grown up in our teachings, so I shouldn't be surprised you ask, he mused to himself. Here, among other things, we teach simplicity. Your life is to be busy and simple. Any kind of ornamentation, decoration, or ostentation is a distraction from your studies and meditations. So we eliminate as many distractions as possible. We keep things quiet here for the most part, for the same reason. Plus, students such as yourself are expected to dress and behave with humility. The discomfort of wool is supposed to keep you alert during your studies, he told her. Then why did those two, what were they again? Cleaners? Why were they in street clothes? Why were you in street clothes and why aren't you in them now? Why are your robes white instead of brown? Simplicity she could understand, but not having any art, any music, any color, that was going too far. Brown signifies that you are a student, and all students wear brown as a reminder that they are all equal, no matter what their background is. They could be a ruler or they could be a pauper. It doesn't matter. They are all treated the same and thus must all dress the same. Anyone outside of that particular sect you'll be in can wear whatever they want, so long as there is no pattern, design, or bright colors. For you, though, it will be robes, both to equate you with your peers and to separate you from everyone else. Mine are white because that is what I changed into, he said, and she could tell he was hiding something from her. After all, his robes seemed to be cotton, not wool, so they wouldn't be scratchy. However, he still fidgeted as if they were, and sometimes they brought a wince of pain. Who was screaming yesterday? Will they do that to me? Why can't I leave this room? She asked, the words tumbling out of her mouth before she could slow them down. Whoa, whoa, slow down, he said, raising both hands in front of him. No, no one will make you scream, not unless you earn it by breaking rules, which, by the way, we should discuss. You'll be able to walk around soon enough once you understand the rules of this place, so you don't break them in ignorance. It is also to protect you. We don't normally allow outsiders here, so having you here has made a lot of people very unhappy. Why am I here if no one wants me here? She asked, her voice taking a mournful tinge that made her clear her throat to cover it. You need to learn to control what you can do before you can hurt yourself or others, Neil explained to her. It's more than just that song in your head. There's a lot more you can do, and it will come, whether or not you want it to, now that it has already begun. Better that we teach you and guide you than to have you burn everything down because you didn't know what you could do. But I didn't use any fire. It felt, well, like water and air and earth. It felt cool and fluid and firm all at once. You will. Everyone can use all of the elements, some to varying ability. You'll learn all of this and more in your lessons. For now, I want you to start by teaching you to meditate. Why? I may not believe in God anymore, but that doesn't mean I want to become a Buddhist or a Taoist or whatever. For some reason, this made Neil laugh, a full, deep, rich sound that was surprisingly pleasant to her ears. She thought for sure it would insult him, but instead of getting angry, he laughed, wrapping his arms around his stomach as though in pain from so much laughter. He did cringe a bit while laughing, but it had been so quick she wasn't sure she had actually seen it. Sorry about that, he said, finally getting control over himself as he wiped a tear from his blue eyes. I needed that laugh, thank you. Meditation has nothing to do with religion, though many religions use it, and for good reason. It's a means of focus, and in our case, it's a means of touching the power that only we can touch or even sense. It can also help with pain management, as well as anxiety, depression, and other things. It's not a cure-all, of course, but it helps. No offense meant, but it seems you could use a little meditation. You look terrified. Krista merely nodded in her agreement, though it galled her to do so. Her mind was buzzing with all this new information, with all of her own questions that she couldn't organize well enough to give voice to. Good. To start, make yourself comfortable, or as much as you can on these mattresses anyway, he said with a faint grimace. You don't have to cross your legs if you don't want to. You just need to be comfortable as you sit. Keep your back straight, but relaxed. You want your posture to be relaxed, but attentive. Good. Now, close your eyes. Don't worry, I won't touch you, not unless you want me to. Krista glared at him for that comment. That was inappropriate. Why would you want anyone to touch her? Right, sorry. Okay, so close your eyes and let me guide you. That's better, he continued, clearing his throat as she followed his instruction. Now, take a long, deep breath in and a long, slow breath out. Pay attention to the top of your head and your face. Relax all the muscles in your face, starting with your forehead and eyes, your nose, your ears, your mouth, and jaw. Now focus on your neck and shoulders. Release all the tension in your neck and shoulders and relax those muscles. Now your chest and abdomen. Relax all those muscles in your chest and belly. Good. Now your back, upper arms, lower arms, wrists, palms, fingers. Neil's voice was slow and hypnotic as he spoke. Krista found herself feeling more relaxed emotionally as she slowly let go of the tension in her face, neck, shoulders, back, belly, and arms. Odd how the body affected the mind. She had thought them nearly independent of each other. She was still so afraid, though more relaxed in her body about it. The thought alone caused her brow to furrow. Hey, now, none of that, Neil's voice broke through. Relax that brow. Let whatever thought is in your head right now float away, like a stream with you sitting on the bank, watching it float by. Good, that's better. Now be aware of where you make contact with your mattress and release any tension in your legs, ankles, and feet. Got it? Good. We can begin now. Begin, Krista said incredulously as her eyes popped open, nearly as wide as teacups. I thought we already had. Yes and no, Neil said calmly. Close your eyes and start again. Get everything good and relaxed. Got it? That's better. Now focus on your breath exclusively. Let go of any thoughts or emotions you're feeling right now and focus solely on your breath, wherever you feel it the most. Focus on the motion of your chest and stomach as you breathe in and breathe out. Take a long, deep breath and release it slowly, focusing on that breath completely. Another deep breath in and another slow breath out. Now, let your breath flow naturally. Let it come as it will and go as it will. Do not try to change it at all. Don't try to speed it up or slow it down. Just let it come and focus on wherever you feel it most. As Neil spoke, Krista found herself beginning to float, or so it felt like. Strangely, it felt similar to all the other times she had gone to the beach and stood in the water, letting the waves hit her as she stared off into the distance. Slowly, her anxiety began to fade a little. Naturally, those fears and questions came up again, and she found herself concentrating on that. You'll find that the mind likes to wander, Neil said, as if reading her mind. That's natural. The mind doesn't like being still and doing nothing. It likes to think, to act, and that's okay. Once you notice that you've drifted away from your breath, acknowledge the thought, and then let it float away. Don't feed into it or continue to focus on it. Just let the thought go and watch it float away and come back to the breath. Do not berate or condemn yourself for drifting. It happens and it is natural. Just gently bring yourself back to the breath. How he had managed to get into her head like that was beyond her, and she made a mental note to ask him about it later. For now, she did as instructed and let the thought float away, telling herself she could come back to it later. She focused once more on her breath, making sure all of her muscles were relaxed, while remaining attentive and felt something odd. Whatever it was almost electric, like an energy all around her, but it was all over her body. It was gentle, yet powerful. She wasn't even sure the word electric was a good word to describe it. She wasn't sure there was any word to describe it. She tried to drink it in like a thirsty plant, but she was about as close to doing that as she was to flying unaided. What? She began, not really sure how to phrase what she wanted to say. She kept her eyes closed, but she could feel her brow begin to furrow. You feel it? Neil asked, sounding surprised. I feel something, she said, but I can't touch it. Don't reach then. This isn't something you can touch with your hands, and straining for it won't work, he explained. Relax. Try again. This time, don't reach. Then what do I do? She asked. It feels energetic, right? Like electricity all around you? Yes, it feels nice. How do I use it? You don't. You let it fill you. You become one with the energy, not separate from it. Not two entities working together, but you and that energy are the same entity. Krista nodded, relaxing her brow and the tension that was slowly building in her shoulders. All that built-up tension had made the energy go away, and she wanted it back. As she brought her focus back to her breath, once again feeling strangely calm, the energy came back, covering her from head to toe. She tried to imagine herself as one with the energy around her, but nothing happened. She felt the warmth, but it would not come in. She wanted to reach for it, but knew that wouldn't work. This is silly, she thought to herself. A person cannot become energy or become one with it. She tried to imagine herself as the sun itself, but that had as much success as trying to reach out and grab whatever that warmth was. Maybe because it was a ball of exploding gases and thus matter rather than a form of energy. But the sun exuded a lot of energy, and it didn't work either. The only other thing that came to mind, in spite of the fact that it was not energy, and in fact was the exact opposite, was a black hole. So she visioned herself as a black hole, sucking in all the energy around her, letting nothing back out. Suddenly the warmth filled her, infused her every cell, filling her veins, her skin, her hair, everything. She opened her eyes with a gasp, and the warmth was still there, but more intense, almost blazing. Neil was staring at her, surprise clear on his face. Huh, most students don't get that far for weeks yet, he mused to himself. Okay, go ahead and let go. The more you hold on to it, the more damage you could do to yourself just from holding it. I don't know how, Krista said, her voice wavering. This warmth was wonderful, but threatened to burn her alive. The sheer power of it, begging her to direct it, to do something with it, terrified her, as did the burning sensation in her veins, which intensified with each beat of her heart. You envisioned yourself as being one with that power, yes? He inquired. No, that didn't work. I saw myself as a black hole, sucking it all in, she said. That seemed to give Neil pause. He covered his surprise and concern quickly, though. Well, there's your problem. A black hole doesn't let go. Letting go is different for each person, so I can't really tell you how to do it, but I can give you tips that could help. See yourself as a human being again, welcoming the sun, feeling it, but separate from it, he instructed. Krista imagined herself as she was, a young woman just out of high school, morbidly obese, with long, dark brown hair, hazel green eyes, a full mouth, and fair skin. A human being who felt the sun, but could not become that warmth itself. It did not work, and her panic began to rise. How could she control herself if she couldn't make it go away? What if it never went away? Would it burn her alive? Would it make her do terrible things? The warmth inside her, already threatening to burn her up, grew hotter to the point of pain. A breeze began to rise, with a small part of her thought was was odd considering the only window was high on the wall and small. It's not working, she moaned, her breath coming in pants. Calm down, Neil said, his voice sounding calm, though strained to do so. Getting worked up makes it worse. Close your eyes and relax your forehead and eyes and work your way down. You must be calm. Krista took a long, deep breath and released it slowly, forcing herself to do so. She wanted to make the deep breath deep and fast, impatient for calm out of fear. But she knew that wouldn't work. It never did. Instead, she forced to let herself go slow, forced her muscles to relax. Slowly, she began to relax, and as she did, she imagined herself as a dying dwarf star, slowly dwindling to nothing, and the power started calming down as well. It still threatened to take over and flow as it would, but it now no longer raged inside of her. Too, the odd breeze began to calm just to a whisper of air that wafted through her long, dark locks. That in itself was soothing to her, helping her to calm down and think more rationally. The warmth was powerful indeed, and she had difficulty controlling herself, let alone that power, but it was not impossible to do. Slowly, like cold honey flowing, the whisper of air ceased, and the warmth left her, going back to that sensation of standing in the sun on a warm spring morning. There, now you got it, Neil said with a proud smile. No one has ever gone that far that fast before. I gotta say, you're incredible. I don't know about that, Krista said, her voice wavering a bit. What if I destroy everyone with this? That's why you're here, to learn so you don't. So, what did you do to let go? I forced myself to breathe slowly and saw myself as a dying star, giving up its power. That could be dangerous, he told her, his voice going grim. All this star imagery, particularly the black hole bit. If that's what gets you to accept the power, then so be it. But don't tell anyone what you envision yourself as. At least, not as long as it's a black hole. Some might take that as an ill omen. So you people believe in omens? She said flatly. Some of us do, though not many. Unfortunately, some of those that do have very large voices indeed, and if they heard you say you saw yourself as a black hole, they would have little trouble convincing everyone that you're a danger to us all, he explained. Keep working on the energy thing. Usually that works and it's safer. Why didn't it work for me? She asked. I don't know. We can figure that out later, though. Any other questions? A few. You've been fidgeting this whole time, like you're itchy or in pain, and you've been grimacing too. These mattresses are hard, but not that hard. You also have been sitting with a rigid back, but without any support from the wall, which you could use if you wanted to, and you still haven't answered my question as to who was screaming earlier. Was it you? Neil blinked in surprise, though why he should was beyond her. He made it pretty obvious he was in pain, and by not answering her question he had indicated he did not want to answer it, possibly because he did not want her to know who it was, and if that was the case, it was likely himself that had been screaming. Did he really think she was so stupid she would not pick up on that? The thought made her angry. She was tired of people assuming she was stupid or a know-it-all when they tried to tell her things she really did already know. Something of her thoughts must have shown on her face, because Neil brought up his hands defensively and backed away, unfortunately bumping the wall behind him as he did so, causing him to grimace in pain. Whoa! Before you take my head off, let me explain. Yeah, I avoided the question. I didn't want you to worry. You're pretty smart, you know. All right, it was me screaming. I broke a very important law, and that was my punishment. As you've seen, I'm still pretty sore from it, since it's only been a few hours since it happened, Neil explained. Can you put ice on it, or maybe a soothing salve? She asked. Well, technically we have medics, who specialize in healing, and that would get rid of the marks in moments. But what lesson would I learn if they were healed right away? He said, cringing to himself, possibly out of pain. Anyway, aside from cleaning to make sure they don't get infected, I've been denied any kind of pain management to get the point across, I suppose. Also, anytime I'm not training you, I'll be fasting and meditating. another part of my punishment. Wow, they sure are strict here. How long is that supposed to last? It is out of necessity that we are strict. Being anything less puts us all in danger. Anyway, Laufey, that's our leader, our eldest, didn't say how long. She will let me know when it's long enough, he explained. That isn't right, Krista exclaimed. You have a right to know when it ends. And besides, if they don't decide soon, you could starve to death. The body needs nutrition just to function. No worries about that. Our fasting has a pattern to it to prevent malnutrition while still instilling lessons or helping keep a clear head. I'll have broth and bread before the sun rises, but won't eat the rest of the day. After the sun sets, I'll be given broth and bread for dinner. That doesn't seem like enough calories for basic bodily functions to me, Krista grumbled. It isn't, but for that reason it probably won't last more than a week or two. Any more than that, and Laufey risks being accused of cruelty, and she's already risking a lot right now. So I don't think she will necessarily add more to her plate. That's still too long, Krista huffed. She may not know anyone here very well, but she wasn't about to sit aside and not help, not try to make things right. Yeah, it won't be fun, and that's the point. What good is punishment when you enjoy it? What will you learn from it? Anyway, I'll be fine, so don't worry. I already don't like this place, she grumbled. Fair enough. You don't have to like it. You just have to accept it. Aren't they one and the same? She asked. Nope. Surprisingly, people think that in order to accept something, you first must like it. But that isn't true. You can accept something without liking it. I don't like that I'm being punished, but I accept it. It's a hard lesson to learn, but you will learn it. Suddenly, a bell rang in the distance. Krista didn't know what it meant, but this place had to be huge if that bell was so far away that she could hardly hear it through her window. For that matter, the room was growing rather dim now that the sun must have been setting. That's the bell for the first sitting at dinner, Neil said, slowly rising to his feet. You must be hungry. Hurry off to dinner. I'll see you tomorrow for your first day of training. How do I find where to eat? Krista asked as he opened the door to leave, revealing Ileana with her hand just about to grasp the doorknob, looking surprised. That's how, he said, nodding to Ileana with a grin. Ileana darted around him, coming between them almost protectively, deliberately keeping her back to Neil as she addressed Krista. Did he hurt you? Did he try anything? Ileana demanded with a thick Hispanic accent. Krista didn't know much about her, but in that moment, where she seemed to be protecting her, she decided she liked Ileana and wanted to befriend her. No, she said simply. No, he didn't touch me or anything. He was just explaining a few things to me. Apparently, he's going to be training me. That makes sense. But if he does try something unsavory, you let me know and I'll take care of him, Ileana said, infusing the last part with as much gravity as she could muster. That's not for you to decide, and you know it, Neil chided her. Really, what kind of person do you take me for? True, you never really break rules. But then again, you just broke a really big one today, so what's to say you won't break another? Ileana spat at him. Do you really think I like being punished that much? Neil said, sounding more amused than offended. Ileana's shoulders seemed to relax as she realized that she was being illogical in this situation. Very well, you won't try anything. But if you even think of it, Ileana said with a glare that should have had him checking for the knife that should be between his shoulder blades. I won't, and you know it. And if you two don't hurry, you're going to miss dinner altogether, Neil said impatiently. That's right. I nearly forgot. Hurry up, Krista. Mi madre is cooking tonight, and she is fantastic. She made those tamales you had for lunch, Ileana said, nearly dragging Krista to her feet. Krista still felt very much anxious from everything that was happening around her, dampening her appetite, but she had to admit that lunch had been very good, and if that was any indication of what dinner would be like, she didn't want to miss it. She barely caught her feet as Ileana pulled her out of their room, past a very bemused-looking Neil, who shut the door behind them before heading in the opposite direction.